The vast majority of individuals, regrettably, traverse their entire existence cloaked in a facade, a mask they mistakenly identify as their true self. They actively suppress their authentic voice in a desperate attempt to conform and integrate seamlessly into the surrounding environment. Furthermore, they consciously diminish the magnitude of their aspirations, curtailing their dreams to maintain a semblance of security and stability. Consequently, they are left bewildered and disillusioned, perpetually questioning the authenticity of their experiences and relationships. It isn't necessarily a case of being irrevocably lost, rather, it signifies a fundamental lack of courage to confront and embrace the genuine version of themselves. This authentic self remains buried beneath layers of societal expectations, internal anxieties, and external pressures. The truly disconcerting aspect of this situation is that this dormant version of oneself persists, patiently awaiting recognition and liberation. However, each instance of avoiding discomfort, of shying away from challenges, serves only to further entrench it deeper within the recesses of the subconscious. Therefore, the daily routine becomes one of scrolling past immense potential, of feigning amusement when an urge to express an opinion arises, of accepting mediocrity when the inherent purpose demands creation and construction. As Marcus Aurelius, the esteemed Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, eloquently stated, a man's worth is no greater than his ambitions. Consequently, it is imperative to engage in introspective reflection, to earnestly question the compromises that have become accepted norms. The chasm separating the life that is passively tolerated from the life destined to be lived, the one brimming with purpose and fulfillment, is surprisingly narrow. It is merely the width of a single, decisive choice. If a resonant chord of recognition vibrates within, if this notion penetrates beyond the superficial level of mere words and resonates with a deeper truth, then it indicates being precisely on the intended path. Thus, you are exactly where you need to be. Moreover, if these moments of awakening, these clarion calls to self-discovery, are valued, if messages of this nature hold significance and resonance, then there exists a simple, complementary avenue to express that appreciation: clicking the subscribe button. This seemingly insignificant action can provide tangible support. Let us delve into the heart of the matter. There exists a pivotal moment, a silent and often unexpected realization, that dawns upon each and every one of us. It is the awakening to the understanding that we have, perhaps unknowingly, been existing in a liminal space, a state of in-between. We find ourselves neither fully immersed nor entirely detached, with one foot perpetually chasing the alluring promise of potential, while the other remains stubbornly anchored in the deceptive comfort of the familiar. This realization, more often than not, creeps into our consciousness gradually, cleverly disguised as balance, as a virtue of being practical or even polite. However, here lies a stark and rather uncomfortable truth: you simply cannot have it both ways. It is impossible to simultaneously cling to the perceived safety of the shore and expect to soar effortlessly through the boundless sky. You cannot effectively numb the inherent discomfort that accompanies growth and still anticipate crystal clarity in your vision. Life, in its essence, does not reward half measures or lukewarm commitments. It is, fundamentally, a complex game of trade-offs, a constant negotiation between what we desire and what we are willing to relinquish. Whether you are consciously ready to acknowledge it or not, every single decision you make, regardless of its perceived significance, is akin to walking through a doorway. With each step you take through one portal, you are, by the very act of choosing, irrevocably closing another. This is not an exercise in negativity or pessimistic forecasting, but rather a candid acknowledgement of the reality we inhabit. Saying yes to the alluring embrace of comfort inherently means saying no to the challenging, yet ultimately rewarding, path of growth. Similarly, saying yes to the fleeting distractions that constantly vie for our attention means you are actively and consciously rejecting the focused intention required for meaningful progress. Scrolling endlessly through the digital abyss is not a harmless pastime or a mere innocent indulgence. It is, in fact, a deliberate choice to postpone your own advancement, a decision to defer the pursuit of your true potential. You simply cannot expect to evolve into the best possible version of yourself while simultaneously clinging to the very habits and patterns that are actively keeping you firmly planted in the realm of mediocrity. As the esteemed Epictetus wisely stated, no man is free who is not master of himself. And this profound self-mastery, the ability to govern one's own actions and desires, does not emerge from convenience or ease. Rather, it is forged in the crucible of conviction, cultivated through unwavering discipline and a relentless pursuit of self-improvement. The profound insights of Carl Jung, a pioneering figure in the field of psychology, resonate deeply with this concept. He once penned the powerful words, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Consider the weight of that statement for a moment. We will readily dedicate 10 hours of our precious time to vicariously experiencing the lives of others, often through the filtered lens of social media, before we are willing to simply sit in quiet contemplation with our own thoughts and feelings. We will overcommit ourselves to people and plans that ultimately hold little significance, all in a desperate attempt to avoid the unsettling silence that might reveal uncomfortable truths we are not yet prepared to confront. Concealment, however, does not eradicate truth, rather, it amplifies the anguish of stagnation with the passage of time. The venerable Aristotle posited that excellence transcends a mere singular action. It is, in essence, a deeply ingrained habit, a state we achieve through the steadfast and deliberate selection of actions that resonate with our core values. Consequently, alignment is not a sudden epiphany, but a gradual construction, brick by brick, decision by decision. Each instance where we prioritize ease over diligent effort, cacophony over serene stillness, solace over unwavering courage, constitutes a tangible and impactful choice. Therefore, we are not simply suspended in place, we are, whether consciously or unconsciously, drifting in a particular direction. Thus, let us confront a stark reality: one can either conform to the expectations of others or embrace one's authentic self. However, the simultaneous pursuit of both is an unattainable paradox. The pursuit of external validation and genuine authenticity are mutually exclusive. Inevitably, one will undermine the other. And if one consistently molds oneself to accommodate the expectations of others, one gradually loses sight of the inherent form and essence of one's own being. Plato, in his wisdom, cautioned that indifference to public affairs invites governance by malevolent individuals. Let us, however, translate this wisdom to the personal realm. Indifference to one's own personal affairs invites domination by distraction, by fear, by all things external. Therefore, proactively shape your own destiny, lest it be dictated by forces beyond your control. This requires diligence, self-awareness, and above all courage. Strive for excellence not just in grand endeavors, but in the small, everyday choices that collectively define who you are. Choose authenticity over acceptance, and you will discover a strength and resilience you never knew you possessed. Embrace the challenge of self-discovery, for within it lies the key to unlocking your true potential. And that is not merely unfortunate, it is, in truth, a tragedy. The reason for such a strong sentiment lies in the fact that a viable, indeed empowering, alternative exists, standing directly before you. This alternative is rooted in conscious and deliberate choice. It's about selecting presence over avoidance, actively choosing the difficult path that cultivates growth, as opposed to the easy route that ultimately depletes you. Therefore, the critical question becomes, what will your choice be? There is no immediate need to answer. However, it is imperative to understand this fundamental truth: from this very moment onward, each and every decision you make, what you affirm, what you disregard, what you passively tolerate, either actively contributes to the construction of the person you aspire to become or, conversely, propels you further away from that idealized self. There exists no neutral ground, no middle path where your actions have no consequence. Those individuals who truly flourish in this life, those who navigate it with unwavering clarity and find solace in peaceful slumber, have consciously made the challenging decision to cease dwelling in the ambiguous in-between. As the esteemed Marcus Aurelius so eloquently penned, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Consequently, if your mind is consistently inundated with noise, plagued by avoidance, and paralyzed by indecision, your life will inevitably mirror that very state of disarray. However, conversely, should your thoughts be firmly rooted in purpose, imbued with a clear sense of direction, and fueled by unwavering courage, even the most seemingly insignificant actions will begin to resonate with a palpable sense of momentum. The world, in its vastness and complexity, does not demand perfection from you. It simply implores you to make a choice. To actively participate in the shaping of your own destiny. There exists a pervasive lie, one that we frequently perpetuate upon ourselves. This insidious falsehood is subtle, remarkably convincing, and undeniably dangerous. It whispers deceptively, "Wait until you're ready," as if one day, seemingly out of nowhere, you will awaken completely fearless, fully equipped with all the necessary tools, and entirely certain of yourself. This is a fallacy. Readiness is not a destination to be reached, but rather a state to be cultivated through action and experience. The anticipated day, the one where absolute readiness magically appears, often remains elusive, diverging significantly from our expectations. This is because readiness isn't a passive feeling, it's an active choice, a deliberate decision. Consequently, more often than not, we find ourselves compelled to take a leap of faith, to initiate action before the comforting sensation of preparedness ever materializes. There exists a common misconception, a blurring of the lines between courage and confidence. These two attributes, while often conflated, are fundamentally distinct. Confidence, you see, is the well-deserved reward, the tangible outcome earned after diligently undertaking a challenging task, after conquering the seemingly insurmountable. But courage? Courage is something altogether different. Courage manifests in the quiet moments of profound self-doubt, in the unsettling silence when your voice trembles with uncertainty, when your heart pounds relentlessly in your chest, and your brain vehemently protests, screaming, "Don't do it." It is, fundamentally, the act of saying yes in the face of overwhelming resistance. It's deliberately walking toward the source of your fear, not because you are inherently fearless, but because you have consciously resolved to no longer allow fear to dictate your decisions, to control your trajectory. The eminent Carl Jung astutely observed, "What you resist persists," a profound truth that resonates deeply. The more we intentionally avoid a particular challenge or situation, the more amplified and persistent it becomes in our minds. Fear, rather than diminishing with avoidance, simply burrows deeper, establishing itself more firmly within our subconscious. Therefore, that cherished dream you perpetually postpone, that crucial conversation you've been diligently dodging, that potential version of yourself you're apprehensive to encounter, every instance of delay provides fear with ample opportunity to expand, to entrench itself further. We don't experience personal growth within the confines of our comfort zones. And we assuredly do not evolve in an environment of unwavering certainty. Growth necessitates venturing beyond the familiar, embracing the unknown, and confronting our deepest fears. Plato, the renowned philosopher, once penned the insightful observation that courage resides in discerning what not to fear. However, in the contemporary world, it seems we are often paralyzed by anxieties, fearing everything that lacks an absolute guarantee. We harbor trepidation about failure, the sting of judgment, and the pain of rejection. Consequently, we find ourselves perpetually waiting, indefinitely postponing action. We rationalize our inaction, convincing ourselves that we require additional time, greater financial resources, more extensive training, or increased clarity. Yet, deep within our hearts, we recognize the underlying truth: what we genuinely need is a reduction in fear and a surge of purposeful movement. Consider, for example, the image of a young woman standing nervously on stage. Her hands tremble visibly, and her voice falters as she reads her poetry aloud for the very first time. Do you believe she felt entirely prepared for that moment? Absolutely not. However, she bravely proceeded nonetheless. She didn't act because she felt invulnerable or impervious to criticism. Instead, something deep within her finally reached a breaking point, declaring, "Enough. Enough hiding in the shadows. Enough endlessly waiting for the perfect moment. Enough allowing fear to dictate the narrative of her life." That, my friends, is the very essence of courage. Socrates, another towering figure of ancient philosophy, once wisely stated, "To move the world, first move yourself." Yet, the majority of us passively wait for some external validation, expecting the world to offer a sign, to unfurl a metaphorical red carpet, and to graciously announce, "Now, and only now, may you commence your journey." Sadly, that is simply not how life unfolds. If anything, life patiently awaits your initial move, your willingness to take that first, often uncomfortable, step. It anticipates you raising your hand in assertive declaration, and speaking your truth with conviction. Only when you demonstrate this proactive initiative does the true shift begin to occur. Understand, dear reader, that stumbling along the way is an inherent and unavoidable part of the process. It is through these missteps and stumbles that we learn, grow, and ultimately, find our footing. A pristine beginning, a flawlessly executed launch, these are often illusions. The reality is far more nuanced. You are likely to stumble, to feel ungainly, and to grapple with self-doubt. However, within these very struggles lies the crucible of growth. You will undoubtedly learn valuable lessons and cultivate resilience, that particular kind of strength forged solely through tangible action. Indeed, the Stoic philosophers, masters of inner fortitude, eloquently conveyed that virtue resides not in mere contemplation or fleeting emotions, but squarely in action. The Venerable Seneca, a guiding light of Stoicism, astutely observed, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult." This profound insight prompts a crucial question: what endeavors have you been postponing, not due to a genuine inability, but rather because of a perceived lack of readiness? Furthermore, consider the unsettling possibility that readiness itself is a phantom, a mere construct of our anxieties. What if it is simply fear, cleverly disguised in the cloak of logic? The truth, often veiled but ever present, is that every individual you admire, those who have crafted something truly meaningful, those who have fearlessly embraced their purpose, commenced their journeys with trepidation as well. The distinguishing factor, the key to their success, lies not in their absence of fear, but in their refusal to be paralyzed by it. They did not succumb to the allure of procrastination, nor did they demand absolute certainty before taking the plunge. Instead, they acted, they moved forward. Therefore, perhaps today, this very day, marks the opportune moment for you to emulate their courage. There need be no dramatic metamorphosis, no perfectly orchestrated scenario. All that is required is a single, perhaps unsteady, step forward. And that, in essence, is all it ever takes to initiate the journey. This initial act of bravery can shatter the illusion of impossibility, unlocking your potential and propelling you towards your goals. In addition to this call to action, it's important to note that there's something strangely seductive about the comfortable embrace of normalcy. It's easy to remain within the familiar confines of the status quo, avoiding the perceived risks and uncertainties that accompany the pursuit of something extraordinary. However, true fulfillment often lies beyond the boundaries of the ordinary, beckoning us to venture into uncharted territories and embrace the challenges that await. It presents a facade of security and unwavering predictability, a comforting delusion that your actions are inherently correct simply because they mirror the behavior of the masses. However, herein lies a significant predicament: embracing the ordinary will never propel you toward the extraordinary destinations you aspire to reach. It confines you to a repetitive cycle, a realm of hushed familiarity, and a state of agonizing insignificance. You were not designed for such limitations. Your innermost being recognizes this profound truth. That subtle unease that gnaws at you when trapped within the confines of routine, when your aspirations fade into mere mental wallpaper, represents your very essence struggling against the oppressive burden of mediocrity. Let us be unequivocally clear, embracing the normal path is undeniably effortless. It manifests as habitually arriving late and departing prematurely, perpetually awaiting the arrival of the weekend to experience a fleeting sense of vitality. It entails seeking solace in the digital world of your phone while your true calling gathers dust, perpetually postponing your dreams with the empty promise of one day, despite the relentless ticking of time. The ancient philosopher Epictetus posed the poignant question, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? This inquiry should linger in your thoughts, serving as a constant reminder of the undeniable truth: you have been expending ordinary effort while harboring aspirations for exceptional outcomes, a flawed equation that has never yielded the desired results. Therefore, it's time to wake up and recognize the power that resides within you. Aristotle, a profound thinker, firmly believed that excellence is never a mere coincidence, rather, it is the culmination of purposeful decisions, elevated aspirations, and tireless dedication. It demands a commitment to pushing beyond the comfortable boundaries of the normal and embracing a life of intention and purpose. Therefore, challenge yourself, break free from the ordinary, and embark on the extraordinary journey that awaits. Therefore, greatness isn't something you accidentally discover, it's a deliberate choice, a conscious act of creation. You meticulously sculpt it from the very hours you'd perhaps prefer to squander on less demanding pursuits. It's painstakingly constructed by embracing the tasks that the majority typically shun, the arduous, unglamorous endeavors that cultivate profoundness and unwavering discipline. Let's delve into the realm of psychology for a brief moment. The esteemed Carl Jung once penned the insightful words, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." However, the pivotal question arises, how can one possibly metamorphose into their authentic self if they perpetually mirror the ingrained habits, anxieties, and incessant distractions that permeate their surroundings? We often delude ourselves into believing that we're making prudent, secure decisions. But in reality, we're merely outsourcing the very essence of our identity to the collective, the amorphous crowd. And let's face it, the crowd is weary, perpetually distracted, and ultimately unfulfilled. This is precisely the normal against which we habitually measure ourselves. Take a moment to observe your surroundings. Normal is synonymous with burnout, normal is consistently overwhelmed, normal is uttering the deceptive phrase, "I'm fine," while simultaneously experiencing a slow, insidious erosion from within. So, with all this glaring evidence, why are we still striving for this so-called normal? Why do we continue to harbor such an inherent fear of embracing our uniqueness when, in actuality, difference is the very catalyst that propels progress forward? The venerable Socrates famously proclaimed, "The unexamined life is not worth living." If you haven't recently paused to introspectively question whether the life you're diligently constructing genuinely mirrors the person you aspire to be, then you're not truly living, you're merely drifting aimlessly. You're drifting passively with the prevailing cultural current, drifting inexorably toward the seductive allure of comfort, drifting inevitably toward the mediocrity of average. Let me be candid, the realm of average is exceedingly populated, it's where everyone congregates, and thus, it cultivates a perception of safety. However, this perceived security is merely familiarity, and there is a significant distinction between the two. The allure of the ordinary can be deceiving. Now, let me clarify, I am not advocating for a reckless, full-throttle approach in every facet of existence. Burnout is certainly not a commendable achievement, nor is it a sustainable way to live. What I am suggesting is that you strategically select your 5% zones, those critical areas of your life that resonate with profound significance. In these domains, you must resolutely refuse to settle for mediocrity. This could encompass your physical well-being, your chosen craft or profession, your interpersonal relationships, your mental fortitude, or any other aspect that holds paramount importance for you. Commit fully to these areas, not with reckless abandon, but with unwavering determination and persistence. Marcus Aurelius, the renowned Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, astutely observed, "You possess dominion over your mind, not external occurrences." Recognize this fundamental truth, and you shall discover inner strength. The world, in its relentless pursuit of your attention, will invariably attempt to divert you with superficial rewards, fleeting likes, fleeting applause, and the ephemeral rush of fast dopamine hits. However, your true peace, your inherent power, and your untapped potential lie dormant, buried beneath the layers of distractions that the pursuit of normalcy actively encourages. Therefore, it is imperative to engage in honest self-reflection. Where have you acquiesced to the allure of the ordinary? And where are you, at long last, prepared to transcend its limitations? Because, fundamentally, if you aspire to cultivate an extraordinary life, you must consciously begin to make uncommon choices, one deliberate decision at a time. Not at some indefinite point in the future, but starting today, in this very moment. The journey to an exceptional existence begins with the conscious rejection of the ordinary. It is, indeed, a curious paradox, is it not? We embark on a relentless quest, scouring the vast expanse of the world for things that we already inherently possess within ourselves. It is as though we are perpetually engaged in a mission to transform into something other than what we are. Yet, in most instances, what we truly require is to return, to rediscover those integral parts of ourselves that we have inadvertently buried beneath the cacophony of external noise, the insidious influence of comparison, and the futile endeavor of attempting to live in accordance with someone else's preconceived notion of success. We must quiet the external world to hear the whispers of our true selves. The relentless pressure to discover oneself pervades every corner of modern life, yet here is a potentially transformative notion: perhaps you are not, in reality, lost at all. Instead, consider the possibility that you are merely, and perhaps profoundly, distracted. Reflect for a moment on the frequency with which you genuinely dedicate time to introspective contemplation, truly spending time with yourself. We're talking about eliminating all external stimuli, no phone clamoring for your attention, no music filling the void, no social media filters distorting reality, just you, alone with your thoughts. The majority of individuals actively shun this quiet solitude as if it were a palpable danger, something to be feared and avoided at all costs. But that very silence, that seemingly intimidating emptiness, is actually your true home. It is the sanctuary where your primal instincts reside, the fertile ground from which genuine clarity blossoms. The renowned psychoanalyst Carl Jung wisely stated, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakes," a sentiment that resonates deeply with the human experience. We dedicate a significant portion of our lives to the relentless pursuit of more, perpetually hoping that if we simply accomplish enough, acquire enough possessions, and please a sufficient number of people, we will finally attain a sense of completeness, a feeling of wholeness. However, the truth is that wholeness was never an external acquisition to begin with. It was never something to be found out there, in the external world. The Stoic philosophers, masters of self-awareness, understood this profoundly. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, eloquently wrote, "Look well into thyself, there is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." Consequently, your true power does not reside in transforming yourself into something entirely new, some fabricated ideal. Instead, it lies in the act of remembering who you were before the pervasive influence of the world dictated who you should be. And if this idea strikes a nerve, if it evokes a feeling of discomfort or recognition, that is a positive sign. It signifies that there is still a vital piece of your authentic self patiently waiting to be reclaimed, yearning to be rediscovered. Therefore, embrace the discomfort as an invitation to embark on a journey of self-reclamation. The fundamental issue we face, however, is that we have become remarkably skilled at the art of pretense, at crafting facades and concealing our true selves from the world, and often, from ourselves. We engage in performance, constantly adapting and mirroring what we believe will garner acceptance. However, this act of performance comes at a price. The more time one dedicates to playing a fabricated role, the more challenging it becomes to discern one's authentic voice amidst the cacophony of external pressures. Eventually, an awakening occurs, a moment of questioning why life feels lackluster and disconnected, even when outwardly appearing successful. Indeed, Plato, the eminent philosopher, wisely taught that knowledge is essentially a form of recollection. Truth, therefore, is not something forcibly instilled within us, but rather something carefully drawn out from within. This, in essence, is the very foundation of self-awareness. It is not about constructing an entirely novel version of oneself. Instead, it is a process of meticulously peeling away the numerous layers of societal conditioning and expectations until one ultimately encounters the core self that has always been present. This is the unfiltered version of you, the one unconcerned with superficial metrics like likes, carefully crafted optics, or the dictates of algorithms. It is the part of you that simply exists, authentically and unapologetically. And crucially, that inherent part of you already possesses profound knowledge. It inherently knows what ignites your passion, what makes you truly come alive, and equally, what creates a sense of misalignment within your being. Sadly, we habitually suppress this inner voice, muting it each and every time we compromise our core beliefs merely to maintain a superficial peace. Every time we utter a yes when our entire being is screaming no, we contribute to this silencing. Every time we relentlessly chase after what merely appears appealing, rather than pursuing what resonates deeply within our hearts, we further distance ourselves from our authentic selves. Therefore, the journey towards self-discovery is not about reinvention, but about remembering who we truly are. Socrates, the eminent philosopher, once proclaimed, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." A profound statement indeed. And yet, ironically, the majority of us dedicate considerably more time scrutinizing the lives of strangers online than delving into the depths of our own hearts and minds. This, my friends, is the central paradox of our modern existence. We yearn for meaning, a sense of purpose and direction, but we consistently seek it in all the wrong places, diverting our gaze from the wellspring of truth that resides within. We often delude ourselves into believing that the answer lies just around the corner, in the acquisition of the next coveted job, the intoxicating allure of a new relationship, or the elusive attainment of the next, supposedly improved, version of ourselves. However, this next version isn't something that lies ahead, waiting to be discovered. Instead, it's often deeply buried beneath layers of avoidance, procrastination, and self-deception, obscured by the noise and distractions of our hectic lives. Therefore, consider this: what transformative change might occur if you simply stopped, not surrendered entirely, but just paused, even momentarily? What if you deliberately turned down the incessant volume of the external world, silencing the cacophony of opinions and demands, and finally, truly listened to the still, small voice within yourself? I posit that you would remember. You would remember that you already possess the inherent wisdom, the instinctive compass, the unwavering clarity that you so desperately seek. You've simply forgotten how to trust it, how to heed its gentle guidance amidst the chaos. The Stoics, those ancient masters of self-mastery, fervently believed in the power of self-sufficiency. However, their concept of self-sufficiency was not rooted in a cold, isolated detachment from the world. Rather, it was a deeply empowering philosophy, a recognition of one's inherent strength and resilience. You don't require external validation or permission to embrace the authentic essence of who you are. You don't need to enroll in yet another self-help course or heed the pronouncements of another guru telling you what to do, how to feel, or who to be. You already possess the answers within you, a treasure trove of insights waiting to be unlocked. And once you begin to act from that place of inner knowing, from a space of genuine authenticity, life ceases to feel like a relentless performance, a charade orchestrated for the approval of others. Instead, it transforms into a profound and joyous return to your true self, a homecoming to the essence of your being. It becomes a vibrant, exhilarating journey of self-discovery and self-expression, guided by the unwavering compass of your own inner wisdom. You don't have to transform into someone completely different to possess inherent worth. Instead, the key lies in recalling the profound truth that already resides within you. There exists an undeniable power in recognizing that no external force will materialize to finalize your narrative. This uncomfortable, yet liberating, realization reveals that your existence, your very life, is yours to mold, one line at a time, one decision after another. You are far more than a mere player in someone else's grand design. You are, in essence, the author, the narrator, the artist, and whether you embrace it or not, the brush has always been firmly within your grasp. However, we often lose sight of this essential truth. Life, unfortunately, tends to accumulate mistakes, disappointments, and regrets. These burdens can begin to feel like heavy chains, like irrefutable evidence that we are hopelessly stuck or irreparably broken. But this perception is merely another illusion, a deceptive trick of the mind. The Stoic philosophers, with their profound wisdom, taught us not to dwell on the past with sorrowful lamentations, but rather to harness its power for growth and advancement. Marcus Aurelius, the renowned Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, eloquently wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Therefore, the very thing you perceive as holding you back, as hindering your progress, is actually the raw, unrefined material from which your next strategic move will be crafted. Your past missteps are not anchors, dragging you down into the depths of despair. Instead, they serve as the unique and compelling texture in the magnificent painting you are about to create, a painting that will undoubtedly reflect your resilience, your strength, and your unwavering spirit. They add depth, complexity, and character to your masterpiece, making it all the more captivating and authentic. Carl Jung, the esteemed Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, once profoundly stated, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." This shift in perspective, this conscious decision to define oneself not by past experiences but by future aspirations, is, in essence, everything. You possess the power to perpetually gaze at your past, treating it as an inescapable prison, a confining space that dictates your present and future. Conversely, you hold the agency to seize the brush of self-determination and artistically paint over that past, not with the intention of erasing its existence, but rather to purposefully transform it into something meaningful and empowering. Each painful chapter, every wrong turn taken, and every scar accumulated are not merely dead weight, burdens to be carried through life. Instead, they represent depth, the nuanced layers that contribute to the richness and complexity of your being. They are the shades and shadows that lend authenticity and realism to the masterpiece that is your life. Therefore, embrace these experiences as integral components of your personal narrative. Furthermore, avoid becoming ensnared in the pressure to possess a completely clear and defined picture of your future. This pursuit of absolute certainty is yet another trap that can paralyze you into inaction. It is not expected that you should have a complete vision of the final version of yourself at this stage. Instead, the imperative is to simply begin, to take that first step, even if your hand trembles with uncertainty, even if those initial strokes appear messy, imprecise, or uncertain. Remember that no one ever creates anything truly beautiful without first being willing to embrace a period of awkwardness, a willingness to experiment and learn through trial and error. Even the great philosopher Aristotle believed that excellence is not achieved through grand, isolated moments of brilliance, but rather formed through the consistent cultivation of habits, through small, deliberate choices made day after day. Thus, the essential question is not whether the outcome will be perfect from the outset, but rather, will you summon the courage to begin, to initiate the process of self-creation? Plato, another towering figure in the history of philosophy, wisely reminded us that the beginning is invariably the most important part of any endeavor. Yet, paradoxically, it is often the part that we fear the most, the part that triggers anxiety and hesitation. Overcoming this initial fear, embracing the uncertainty of the starting point, is the key to unlocking your potential and embarking on a journey of transformative growth. Therefore, dare to begin, and trust that the masterpiece will gradually unfold. We often find ourselves at a standstill, caught in the web of overthinking. We linger, anticipating the opportune moment, the precise instruments, the flawless state of mind. However, the truth is, none of these prerequisites are truly essential. What truly matters is action, the very deed of appearing, regardless of the prevailing uncertainty. This, in essence, is the true manifestation of courage. It's not about boisterous declarations or unwavering fearlessness, but rather a quiet, persistent determination. Socrates, the renowned philosopher, implored individuals not only to understand themselves but also to translate that understanding into tangible action. What, indeed, is the purpose of profound insight if it never evolves into forward momentum? What value lies in acquiring knowledge if we fail to utilize it to forge something novel? The annals of the past will not spontaneously rewrite themselves. Yet, you, uniquely, possess the ability to author something entirely new today. This creation might not be pristine, it might not immediately resonate with clarity. Nevertheless, it will be inherently yours, and this ownership is what imbues it with power, what renders it undeniably worthwhile. Therefore, cease your waiting for absolute clarity. Refrain from postponing action until you feel completely prepared. Seize the brush, embrace the chaos, harness the heartbreak, and leverage the accumulated lessons. The canvas already stands before you, regardless of whether you acknowledge its presence. And every single second you spend in hesitation is a second irrevocably squandered, a second contributing to someone else's narrative. There exists a moment, tranquil and almost imperceptible, wherein everything undergoes a profound shift. This transformation isn't triggered by the world suddenly becoming more accommodating or less demanding. Instead, it stems from your conscious decision to cease waiting, to embrace the present moment and act. In doing so, you reclaim your agency and begin to shape your own destiny. You cease doling out your personal power as if it were mere coupons, desperately hoping that someone, anyone, will step forward to redeem them, thereby validating your intrinsic worth. The incessant quest for external validation ends. You relinquish the need for constant signs, for metaphorical green lights illuminating your path, for the universe to furnish irrefutable proof that you are, in fact, authorized to commence your journey. Instead, a profound decision takes root within you. This isn't born from a sudden surge of fearlessness, but rather from a stark realization: the agonizing cost of remaining mired in stagnation ultimately dwarfs the trepidation associated with venturing forward. That precise juncture, that pivotal instant, marks the genesis of genuine transformation. This change doesn't originate in the external world, but deep within the core of your being. You cease gazing at your reflection and perceiving only the cumulative weight of your past failures and frustrating delays. Instead, you recognize the nascent potential of something truly exceptional, something authentic and tangible. Because here lies an uncomfortable truth that demands acknowledgement: your life does not magically transform simply because you desire it to. Rather, it undergoes a profound metamorphosis when you actively choose it to, when you resolutely draw a firm line in the sand and declare a definitive end to self-diminishment, to the exhausting charade of performance, to the soul-crushing act of pretense. This, you proclaim, is all there is, the raw, unfiltered reality of your existence. You require no external permission, not from those who would seek to define you, not from the lingering echoes of your past experiences, and certainly not from some idealized, future iteration of yourself who supposedly possesses all the answers. You have already been chosen, irrevocably selected by the very breath that sustains you, by the vibrant fire that burns within your chest. The distinction between your current self and the person you are destined to become is not contingent upon inherent talent or sheer luck. Instead, it hinges on a singular, decisive act: to show up fully, authentically, and unapologetically, to shed the restrictive mask you've been wearing, to cease sleepwalking through life on autopilot. Therefore, embrace the present moment, for it is the only reality you can truly shape. It is in this conscious choice that real and lasting change begins. Indeed, the prospect is daunting. Change, as a rule, evokes a sense of trepidation. However, it is simultaneously imbued with a certain sanctity. This is because when you resolve to transcend the ordinary, when you cease your attempts to conform to predetermined molds that were never designed to accommodate you, you bestow upon the world a precious gift, your unadulterated self. Aristotle, the venerable philosopher, posited that self-knowledge constitutes the genesis of all wisdom. Yet, he omitted a critical adjunct: acting upon the discoveries made during this introspective journey necessitates courage. The world, as we know it, is a cacophonous arena that celebrates conformity and applauds meticulously crafted facades of our true selves. However, such accolades are ultimately hollow, never compensating for the profound silence that descends when one is left alone, grappling with the unsettling question of what became of the person they once were. Therefore, let this instant become a pivotal juncture in your life, a moment you will reflect upon not for its boisterousness or drama, but for its profound honesty. Let it be the moment you truly felt the burden of your unrealized potential and finally declared, with unwavering conviction, enough. Ponder this: there exist individuals whom you have yet to encounter, who desperately require you to evolve into your destined self. Consider the child who will glean hope from your narrative, the friend who will draw strength from your resolve, and the stranger who is metaphorically drowning, desperately seeking a lifeline, and who will only rediscover the ability to breathe again upon hearing your unvarnished truth. Consequently, embrace the transformative power of change, for it holds the key to unlocking your authentic self and inspiring others along the way. Imagine, if you will, a future iteration of yourself, a version 5 years hence, imbued with greater wisdom, resilience, and fortitude. This future you will undoubtedly be overflowing with immense pride for the courageous leap you are contemplating right now. Do not, under any circumstances, deprive the world of the potential that resides within that future self. Life, you see, does not simply bestow meaning upon us like a readily available reward. Instead, we are tasked with forging it, sculpting it meticulously from the raw materials of discomfort, uncertainty, and unwavering determination to never surrender. This creation unfolds one courageous, perhaps imperfect, but undeniably exquisite decision at a given moment. And should your voice tremble ever so slightly as you articulate your truth, embrace that tremor. It is, in fact, an indication that your words carry significant weight, that they possess a profound authenticity. Therefore, rise to the occasion, make your presence known, and give voice to your convictions, not at some nebulous point in the future, but right now, this very day. We extend our sincere gratitude for your engagement with. Should the sentiments expressed resonate with something deep within your being, we encourage you to remain with us, for there is a wealth of further insights awaiting your discovery. Your next step on this journey can be found in the videos displayed on the screen. Until our paths converge again, we urge you to nurture and safeguard that inner fire that burns brightly within your heart. We anticipate reuniting with you in the near future.